If we made the right deal, I'd make a deal.
Well, the White House has gone radio silent since the Oval Office meeting last Monday.
6 days. The United States of America, partially shut down. Government buildings stand quiet, their lights fading as the sun sets over Washington. Empty hallways, desks left behind, paychecks delayed. A nation built on power, now trapped in political silence. For the fifth time, both parties walked into the Senate chamber and walked out with nothing. No deal, no compromise, just blame. The echoes of failed votes bounce through the Capitol as frustration grows across the country. In the streets, federal workers wait, some angry, some scared. Flights delayed, national parks closed, and millions of lives caught in limbo. The economy slows, confidence shakes, and the countdown continues. Behind closed doors, tension rises. Every hour of silence costs billions. Every argument pulls America one step closer to the edge. This isn't just politics anymore. It's a nation on pause. Across American cities, tension rises. Federal troops, National Guard units, deployed in streets where protests have turned into flashpoints. Portland, Chicago, the heart of the nation. For months, unrest has shaken communities. Crime, demonstrations, and political division converge. In response, the administration moves decisively, or some say aggressively, sending soldiers into civilian neighborhoods. The law gives the president powers under Title 10, Section 12406 to quell insurrections or enforce federal law. But critics warn, military presence on city streets risks civil liberties, blurring the line between defense and law enforcement. Judges in Oregon blocked National Guard deployment, citing the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878. In Illinois, courts allowed it, conflicting rulings, uncertainty. And the president threatens to invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807, a measure that would authorize active duty military forces on domestic soil without state consent, unprecedented in modern U.S. history. Citizens watch as armored vehicles patrol downtown avenues. Local governments clash with federal authority. Families pass shuttered stores. News cameras capture moments of tension, fear, and confrontation. Every hour brings new debates. Legal challenges pile up. Political rhetoric escalates. And in the middle of it all, the question remains, can order be restored without crossing the fragile boundary between democracy and militarization? The National Guard in U.S. cities is more than a show of force. It is a test of law, of leadership, and of a nation grappling with its own divisions. Day 1, Donald Trump's return to the White House. And before the sun could rise over Washington, a pen stroke changed the tone of American politics once again. At the southern border, Trump signed an executive order declaring a national emergency, a move that reignited one of the most divisive debates in modern U.S. history. Standing before the towering border wall, his voice carried through the hot Texas air as he ordered top officials to evaluate the use of a rare 19th century law, the Insurrection Act of 1807. That law, older than the Civil War itself, gives a president the power to deploy active duty military troops inside the United States to perform law enforcement duties when civil authorities can't or won't act. It's a power used only in moments of crisis. 1957, Little Rock. 1992, Los Angeles. Each time, a president crossed the line between politics and military intervention. Now, Trump's move raises new questions. He says it's about national security, about stopping what he calls a border invasion. But critics warn, using military forces on domestic soil could shatter long-standing boundaries set by the Posse Comitatus Act, the very law meant to keep the military out of civilian policing. Federal courts are already reviewing the emergency order. If judges block his plan to send National Guard units to border cities, Trump says he'll consider invoking the Insurrection Act to override them. A threat that, if carried out, could put soldiers face to face with civilians on American streets, something not seen in decades. Across the nation, reactions split instantly. Supporters cheer a strong stand on border security. Opponents call it an abuse of power. And somewhere in between, millions watch, uncertain what comes next. As the southern border bristles with troops and searchlights sweep across the desert, one truth remains. The Insurrection Act was written for rebellion. But tonight, it hovers over a democracy already divided.
Dark skies hang over Chicago tonight. Sirens wail through the downtown streets. the sound echoing off glass towers as a new kind of tension spreads, not from crime, but from the government itself. Hours ago, President Donald Trump authorized the deployment of 300 National Guard troops into the city, marking the first direct use of federal force in a major U.S. city since the 2020 protests. The official statement from the White House says the mission is to secure federal facilities and protect immigration enforcement operations. But on the ground, it feels very different. Black SUVs roll across Michigan Avenue, convoys of military trucks move past the river bridges, and the residents, already weary of weeks of protests, stare in disbelief. At City Hall, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and Chicago's mayor have filed an emergency lawsuit, calling the deployment an illegal overreach. Their attorneys argue that the Constitution gives states the right to control their own guard units unless war or insurrection has been declared. Inside the White House, aides defend the decision, citing chaos and lawlessness after a recent ICE confrontation turned violent. A Border Patrol agent shot and wounded a woman during a street clash, sparking outrage and nightly demonstrations. Critics warn that Trump is testing the boundaries of the Insurrection Act, an 1807 law allowing presidents to use the military for domestic enforcement, something rarely invoked in American history. But Trump's message tonight was clear. If states won't act, he will. As armored vehicles begin arriving at O'Hare's cargo terminal, protesters gather under the rain, waving signs and chanting against what they call military occupation. Meanwhile, National Guard commanders say their orders are simple: protect federal assets, avoid confrontation, and restore order. Legal experts predict a constitutional showdown. Federal judges in Oregon and California have already issued temporary blocks against similar deployments. Illinois may be next. But for the people of Chicago, it's no longer about courts or politics. It's about fear. Fear of what happens when the line between policing and military power begins to blur. Tonight, under the flashing red lights of patrol cars and the low hum of helicopters circling above, America watches once again as the battle between federal authority and state sovereignty plays out in the heart of one of its greatest cities. And no one knows what happens next.